I'm Theresa, this is Leanne. We're going to talk about a project that we've been calling Maps That Glow. This is a project that blends critical making with spatial literacy by using paper circuits to teach foundational concepts in cartography. As we all know, maps are important, mapping is important, and map reading skills are foundational to many disciplines, particularly digital humanities, geography, among, I don't need to tell you all this, basically everything. However, we've noticed from the library context, when we introduce novice students to GIS software or digital mapping tools, we often face a hurdle, and that's students and instructors can easily get bogged down by figuring out which button to click or troubleshooting software, that they can miss these foundational intellectual concepts that we're trying to get at. Ideas like cartographic bias, abstraction, the iterative nature of information creation become overshadowed by technological anxiety. One way that we frequently get around this in the library is by teaching with the print map collection, like Christina and Niles just explained in these one-shot sessions. We do a lot of that, which is effective, but we wanted to find a way for students to create their own maps and practice cartography rather than just map reading without the distraction of software.
And that's where I come in. So this led us to the world of critical making, which is exactly what it sounds like. So combining critical thinking skills with making things. So I manage our library makerspace, and I often lead workshops and classes in this area. And Theresa and I are always looking for ways to bring together our two worlds of maps and makerspaces. And in this instance, we found that paper circuits were a really good candidate. So that's what we're going to share today. So by stepping away from screens and creating physical representations of data, we hope that students will engage with the material in a different way. Good. Cool. So paper circuits, by show of hands, does anybody know what a paper circuit is? Oh, just a few of you, cool. I wonder if you have kids in school right now, because this is a very popular activity in K through 12 settings. But a paper circuit is just, it's essentially a little light up thing. So this right here is our map that we're talking about, and it's got little LEDs on it. So this is a paper circuit example. And teaching students how to make these is one of my favorite things to do. It's very simple, and it's, as I said, it's kind of used in these K through 12 like STEM settings, but it's a really cool way to, I think it's like a tricky way to get STEM people to make art and to get art people to do STEM. So that's kind of one of my favorite approaches. And I also find that it looks like something for kids, but it works for a ton of different contexts. So I think it works just as well for college students as it does for elementary school kids.
I don't know.
Yes.
We're juggling presenters up here. So yeah, we started trying this in a 100 level geography class called Human Geography in a Changing World. It's one of these catch-all classes that's meant to talk about everything in geography to a bunch of freshmen who need to fulfill a requirement. So it's a super broad class. We structured this in 2 phases with a phase 3 that we did not get to, but we'll still talk about. So phase 1 was just analog. We were doing hand-drawn maps. We asked students to take 20 minutes, sketch out their Bloomington, a view of the city that our university is located in by memory. And when we looked at their work, maybe unsurprisingly, we noticed that most of their maps really focused in on campus. They included things like dorms, study spots, some restaurants, and the surrounding city was really an afterthought if it was included at all. So this organic result of kind of, we had them draw their maps, and then we kind of walked around and said what we were noticing, had them show them off, and it kind of brought up this point for discussion, right? We asked them explicitly to create a personal map, a personal view of a place. What did we learn by creating these maps individually, and then also as a group of students? Whose experience does this map privilege? It's very obvious in this case. But it was a really instant demonstration of cartographic bias authority, right? Are they the authority of their own experience? Of course. Is this an authoritative map of the city? Kinda, yeah. And different perspective in cartography.
So this leads us to phase 2. So after they drew their maps, we came back the following week, and that's when we created the paper circuits. So we gave the students their original maps that they had made, and then I came in and showed them how to work with the materials. So this portion was a little more technically focused, so it was, here's an LED, here's how it works, here's how you put down the tape and create your circuit. So very technically focused, and then all we really told them was, use lights to emphasize a part of your story. So we left it super open-ended just to kind of see what they would come up with. So to make the map light up, they have to decide what are they actually going to highlight. Are they going to show the way that they get home, so they could use it to construct like a route on the map? Are they going to highlight specific points on the map? So this is just a way to using the lights kind of as a tool for narrative self-reflection in the maps that they created. So like Theresa was saying, this deeply reinforced the idea that maps are highly subjective, as we know, and they were super different than the ones that we made. So this is the map that I drew. We're librarians, so I mapped out libraries in relation to where I live. Students were not thinking about things like swimming pools, libraries. Everything that they constructed was very related to the student experience. So like Theresa said, it was like the university exclusively and didn't really represent anything outside of that. So this assignment was just a way for them to approach the subjective nature of cartography and then reflect on it in a personal way. So I'll say a little more about the materials in case anybody in the room is like, oh, I want to go and do this. Like I said, I think there's a whole bunch of different contexts. You could do it with a group of colleagues. You could do it in an educational setting. It's really fun to do, and experimentation is really important, and trying and failing is key to any makerspace experience. That said, you don't want students to be so frustrated that they just walk away like, I couldn't get it to light up, and they can't see anything beyond that. So if anyone is interested in like geeking out about supplies, I brought a few of them so we can talk after this. But I'll just say, it's really just these basic little LED stickers that I like because, oh, thank you. So it's conductive tape is how you create the little path. There's these tiny little LED stickers from a company called Chibitronics. There's a watch battery at the bottom and a binder clip, and that's all it is. So we have our like base underneath, which is where the lights go, and then on top is just a paper map that I drew. So very affordable, mostly just paper, battery, LED, and tape. Voila.
All right, so that part we did. It was great. The students made great maps. We forgot to take pictures of any of them. But we had another phase of the project that we wanted to do but didn't have time to get to, and that's to turn their paper maps with the LEDs into a digital map. So the idea was to take these students' hand-drawn maps and their point of interest layers that they created using the LEDs. Often these would have translated to like point layers, but sometimes lines. We could create polygons based on kind of the extent of the city that they were representing, and then stack them to do some analysis based on what is the center of the student experience, all the different types of things we could learn by doing that, and then that would allow them to have experience doing the physical making and then also translating that to a digital format. Would allow us to do some community mapping, which is not a novel concept here, but we think that by asking students to highlight their specific locations in this tangible way gives them that additional insight. It kind of grounds the digital from their tactile making. All right, so I'll wrap us up. Maps That Glow, we think, provides a low barrier model for teaching spatial literacy skills. First, by choosing a low-tech material like paper circuits, we lowered the barrier to entry for complex intellectual discussions about critical cartography and spatial literacy, and the physical act of making becomes the core of the intellectual experience. Second, this process reinforces the iterative nature of information creation for the librarians. Is one of our ACRL information literacy concepts. Students move away from their raw sketch to a subjective narrative of light, to a structured data layer, if we had gotten to that part. Experiencing mapping as an act of creation, reflection, and refinement. Finally, this project bridges fields, blending critical making, data physicalization, and spatial humanities, offering that the most effective digital humanities instruction sometimes starts with the most analog of materials. So thanks. This is us. This is a map that our one of the comms people in our library did of our library system. That we just think is pretty, so.
So you were talking about how you weren't able to get some pictures of the student work. Does that mean that the students were really excited about what they made brought them home? Paper is lovely because it's cheap, but it's also kind of disposable. Like, is there a way of, I don't know, do you think about like displaying, keeping, letting other people see the work? Like, how are you put some effort into making cool stuff. How do other people interact with that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something we admittedly totally failed on this. This was a project that was a collaboration with a geography faculty member that was born out of an information literacy grant that, due to a number of administrative hurdles, kind of just things took longer than we wanted. So we would love to do that on the next round. Next time we will remember to submit our IRB proposal before we do the work so we can have a little bit more flexibility with displaying and analyzing student work. But yeah, we would love to do that.
I just got really excited with your presentation. I looked up that the coin batteries have a maximum temperature of like 230 degrees, which means you could run it through a laminator.
Ooh.
I'm extremely stoked about what you're doing.
Yeah, we'd love to do it again and kind of keep going.
I'm struck, I guess, by the larger context in Indiana and the assault on geography education more generally. And I wondered, from the perspective of libraries, of map collections more generally, are you finding avenues of resistance or solidarity in the wake of what is a pretty terrifying loss to higher ed?
Yes. Yeah, thank you for that question. The Indiana Geographic Information Council recently wrote an open letter to, I think it was to the governor, in defense of geographic education. For y'all that don't, there's a lot going on in Indiana right now. One of the things is the consolidation of academic programs, which affects geography. So besides just kind of being a human in solidarity with my geography colleagues, I think in libraries we're also kind of under fire too. Finding ways to do projects like this that are like very easily, look, this is a cool thing, this is a value, students are learning something. I don't know. In my optimistic times, I think that maybe it's something that helps. I know there's been more of an emphasis on GIS and these like professional skills that'll help students graduate and make a lot of money, which, I mean, you know, everyone's trying to survive in this system. It makes sense in a way. So we're advocating for more library support for GIS programs, but yeah, I don't know. We're trying, but it's rough. Yeah, it's a rough time in Indiana right now, like many other places. Yeah, thanks.
So thinking about Jen's presentation at the Practical Cartography Day, which I don't know if you were there, but she did a whole printout of like, she used Makerspace too, but did print out houses and make a 3D model of the town. Also do lights and hand circuits. Like, what's the potential for either using, like, start to think about like visual variables, like different color LEDs or like switches that allow certain things to light up at certain times, like just
Yes. Yeah, there are all kinds of possibilities for making it more interactive, or there's like color changing LEDs, different colors. Yeah, totally. So there are a lot of possibilities, and I feel like I always want to go there and never make it past the very basic, does it light up? Because it takes, like, it is low tech to get to that point, but to get to the point where you're maybe coding or introducing buttons and switches, like, it just becomes too much in this type of setting. It's like then the geography class becomes an electronics class. So it's hard to find that balance, and I would love to go there, and there's lots of possibilities, but I think it becomes more of a personal project. Like, it's something that maybe, I feel like that's something that would be a good example to show the students of, like, here's the kind of the ceiling of where you could go. Like, here's what you could do with these very basic materials, and we might not get there in this context, but, like, here's some ideas. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Sure, yeah.
but yeah.
And of course, there would be like one student who like takes that and just like goes with it.
Totally, yes. Thanks.
Yeah, I think in the same way I was wondering, I'm not trying to say scale up to mine, which was 350 houses, but how many can you put on a button battery, how many lights can you put on a button battery, and how much does this cost, is my question.
Yes, once you get into the math of it, that's a good question too. It also turns,
I didn't know that before I made my math.
Yeah.
I just kept hoping that a 9-volt could light up all my LEDs, and it could, but
that's usually my approach. It's just how many can you do? And then, yeah, there's always a student in the room who's like, I'm going to see how many I can put in one, and I want to light up this entire path consecutively with LEDs. And it's like, by all means, go for it. And then the kid from engineering will like sit down and do the math of like, okay, well, I can do this many and I can do this many. So I think it's like you can nerd out as much as you want, or you can stay fairly shallow with that of just like, I just want it to work and here's the story I'm trying to tell. So I feel like there's lots of different options there.
and what's the cost?
The cost. So the little LED stickers are pricey. Like a standard LED, you can get hundreds of those for less than $10. But it's for students who have never worked with them, they just like, the legs break and they're a little bit finicky. So that's why for like a more humanities-based course, I like the stickers because it's just a stick it onto the tape. I think they're pricey though. I feel like they're between 50 to 75 cents a sticker, which does add up if you're working with a class of 40 students, I think we had. So it adds up pretty quickly, but we had a grant that funded the materials for this. But I do recommend it because it took out a lot of the time. Yeah.